right, here we go. Whoops. Go. Hey, shalom. So I got to put my glasses on here so I can see. Shalom, manishma. How's it going? I don't have the screen the chat visible. I'll do that for the next live stream. I'm still working on all the technological stuff. Tov, excellent. All right. So yeah, in Aramaic you could say kul tuv. All right. Yeah, in modern Hebrew, hakol beseder, right? Everything's fine, everything's okay. All right. Arabic we can say bkhair. So, well, thanks for tuning in, and I imagine other people will be popping in and out. Again, this, like I said in the last couple live streams, this is all kind of experimental here. Let me grab my coffee. So just, I figured, especially with languages, the more interactive we can be, the better. And so, before I get started here, just want to make sure if you could leave a comment. Is the video nice and clear? Is the audio nice and clear? Just want to make sure. Let's see. Sorry, I've only taken one semester of biblical Hebrew, but I like the cut of your. All right. Yeah, this is perfect. In fact, even those tuning in who don't have any biblical Hebrew, that's okay. We're just going to be learning the script tonight. Green light on audio and video. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, cool. I'll do my best to stay up on the comments. I'm going to be doing a lot of screen sharing tonight, so I might miss some things here and there. But all right. So the first thing I want to do is just because I want to be attentive to both those who are live online right now and those who are going to be watching the video later. Is we're just going to walk through the alphabet. We're going to start with Hebrew. I'm going to make some comments on it as we go, like how do we pronounce these letters? What's the right way or the wrong way? And I'll comment on all of that business. And then we're going to bring Arabic into it and see how the Arabic alphabet compares with the Hebrew alphabet, why it matters. And we'll talk about some stuff that will even pertain to biblical interpretation, like in the Middle Ages, that kind of thing. So it should be a lot of fun, hopefully educational. And at any point, please be sure to just leave your comments. And again, if I'm screen sharing, I might miss them for a couple of minutes, but I promise to keep checking in and look at them. All right. So what I'm going to do, let's start off by looking at, I just created a doc. And if you guys remind me at the end, I'm just going to entitle this alphabet. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to put all of our notes for tonight in there, and I'll happily, I'll share this. I'll probably post it to my Patreon page. That's probably the best place for me to do that. All right. And so we are going to start with the first few letters of the Hebrew alphabet here. All right. And the first one is going to be Aleph. Now I'm going to increase the size of this significantly. Okay. And hopefully that's good. Does that look all right to you guys there? All right. And so the first letter is Aleph. Now, I'm using the Arial font here, just so you're aware. because the Arial font more closely resembles how we would write these letters by hand. Whereas if we shift, I'm going to go over to Times New Roman here. If you put it in Times New Roman, that is what it's going to look like when it's printed. So if you're reading, excellent, looking good. Thank you so much. I appreciate the feedback there. So what we're seeing there then is the first one, the top row is the Arial. The one in the second row is Times New Roman. When you read Hebrew texts, typically you're going to see it in something resembling the Times New Roman font, but you can see that it's more ornate. It's more like calligraphy, whereas Arial is more like the handwritten. And I think it's better. Just based on my own experience with my seminary students over the years, is that people get tripped up on fonts when they're starting off. Like if they learn to read only one font, then they're going to have a much harder time if someone throws a new font at them. And if you travel to Israel, or you're even looking at stuff in Hebrew online, people who are native speakers are going to use different fonts, um, in the same way that we do in English, right? Nobody uses the same font all the time. Anyways, all right, you get the idea. So Aleph is the first letter, and Aleph is technically a silent letter, according to the modern Israeli pronunciation. Okay. So in biblical times, it would not have been silent for the most part. Okay. But today, most scholars are going to use the modern Israeli pronunciation. And even when reading biblical Hebrew. And the reason for that is that, properly speaking, in biblical times, there was no one pronunciation of Hebrew. Okay, Hebrew would have been pronounced differently from village to village, from region to region. Um, um, yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, your first teacher wrote X for an Aleph. Yeah, and which is kind of what it looks like. And the idea is that for most people, we're learning to recognize the letters. We're not learning to compose anything fancier, to do calligraphy. So, and truthfully, when I write in Hebrew, and this is going to be true for basically for anybody who's trained in modern Hebrew, is that we're going to use cursive when we write Hebrew. We're not even going to use the square script. So the goal of this is not so much to teach you how to write it; it's to teach you to recognize it, and that's what we're here to do. So in biblical days, there would have been multiple pronunciations for lots of letters. And it all depends on the region, so there's a geographical piece, there's a temporal piece, at different times in history, letters would be pronounced differently. Okay. But in the modern Israeli pronunciation, Aleph is silent. Now, what would it have sounded like typically in biblical days? Well, I'm glad you asked that question. All right. And so this is the first area where Arabic is actually going to help us. And this is going to require a little bit of explanation. Aleph, comparing Aleph with Arabic is actually the most complicated discussion, actually. It gets easier after this letter. So, first of all, in Arabic, we have, sorry, I got to switch over to Arabic now on my keyboard. And whoops, I went too far. I have too many keyboards here. Okay, what you are seeing here, this is the letter Alif. Okay, Alif, which sounds like Aleph, right? Typically, if we were transliterating the Arabic into English, we would, or to Latin characters, we would spell it Alif. That would be the most natural way. But you can see how Alif and Aleph, they're basically the same name, right? Now, properly speaking, Alif is not a consonant in Arabic. Technically, it is a chair for a consonant sometimes, and it's a vowel marker sometimes. And this is going to be a little on the confusing side, so don't worry about it. But Alif, properly speaking, is not a consonant in Arabic. It is a chair for a consonant. Explain that in a minute. and it is a vowel marker. Okay, so when there is a long A vowel, an alif might be used to show that there is a long A vowel. Okay, let's talk first though about alif as a chair for a consonant. Okay, so what is the consonant for which it is a chair? Okay, and hold on a second here. There we go. And this is what we call the hamsa. Okay, the hamsa. The hamsa is technically the consonant. Alif is a chair, one of three different chairs or seats for that consonant. The hamsa is a glottal stop, and I see that actually the only person who's commenting so far has pointed out glottal stop, and that is absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So what is this glottal stop? So first of all, when we say glottal, we're talking about the throat, okay? And I'm going to take this off screen share for a minute. There we go, just so you can see better. So if you're trying to pronounce these, put your hand lightly on your throat, okay? And I want you to say the word, be deliberate in how you say it. I want you to pause, think, and then just say the word apple, okay? And do it not too slow, but not too fast. And I want you to do it 3 times and just feel what's happening in your throat when you produce the A sound. Apple, apple, apple. Do you feel that how in order to produce the A vowel, your throat has to tighten up? Okay? Apple. That tightening of the throat is the glottal stop that is what in Arabic, in formal Arabic, and in biblical days, that is what the aleph would have sounded like in Hebrew, and that is what the hamsa still sounds like in standard Arabic today, and to a certain extent in spoken Arabic. It gets a little complicated, right? So, anyways, alif is not a consonant, but what we will see in Arabic, okay, is, well, I got to change screens. Sorry about that. Is this, okay? And that is an alif serving as a chair, alif serving as a chair for the hamsa. And that would make the sound ah, ah, okay? Ah. Now, if you wanted to have it fully vocalized, you could throw the A vowel up there, the fatha, okay, which is like patach in Hebrew, okay? But that's what it would make is ah, ah, and you'll feel that constriction, okay? All right, so that is so far the the um, the alif and the hamsa. The hamsa is the consonant, the alif is the chair. Now, what has happened in Hebrew over the course of millennia is that the alif came to be quiescent or silent. In other words, it lost that glottal feature, and that is kind of what happened in words in Arabic too, in spoken Arabic, where standard Arabic or Quranic Arabic has the alif with the hamsa kind of disappears and it's no longer pronounced and you just get a long A sound. So I'll give you an example. The word for head in formal Arabic is ra's. And did you hear that stop in the middle? Ra's, ra's. Now, in spoken Arabic, it becomes ras, just a long A vowel, ras. Okay? So formal Arabic, ras. It's that abrupt that stopping sound. And then in spoken Arabic, in like Palestinian Arabic today, ras, ras. Okay. And so that is kind of what happens with the alif. In biblical days, more of a glottal stop for the most part. And but over time it comes to be quiescent and it really holds the place for a vowel. All right. Any questions? For those of you who are tuned in here, feel free to put your comments, questions, and I can address them in the the chat here. And just out of curiosity, when I'm doing this screen share like this, are you guys able to see the chat? Is that showing up on your screen? Just want to make sure. Do you know any other Semitic languages? Yes. So in yeah, in my training, so I started after I had started with Greek, and done, I don't know what would have been the equivalent of, I guess, 7 semesters of Greek. Yeah, I took, let's see, I had 3 semesters. This is back in like 2022. Can't see the chat on the screen. Okay, thanks for letting me know. I'm gonna fix that for next time. Um, all right. So yeah, so I took while I was at Alliance Theological Seminary, 3 semesters of modern standard Arabic. So that's formal like newspaper Arabic. Okay. And then that was not so much to speak it, it was more just to learn to read it. And then I did a 1 semester in Ugaritic. I've Before I started working as an Arabic or Aramaic translator, I took Babylonian Aramaic, the Targums in Aramaic, Biblical Aramaic. Did I mention Babylonian Aramaic? I can't remember, but multiple dialects of Aramaic. Studied some Syriac on my own. It's not definitely not my strong suit. Um, Took a semester of Ugaritic. Took, I think, 5 semesters of Akkadian, something like that. So my Akkadian was pretty good. Um, and then spent a lot of time in over the last 6 years, I guess, off and on studying a little bit more formal Arabic, but a lot of spoken Levantine Arabic or Palestinian Arabic. I'm sorry, I keep going back and forth between Aramaic and Arabic. I got both on the brain. So yeah, do you have any questions, particularly with regard to Ugaritic or any of the other languages? Feel free to leave it in there and chime in at any point. All right, I guess we're good for now. So should we go on to another letter? Let's go on to another letter here. So let's go. Let's see. I'm gonna delete these for now, just to kind of sort of line it up for convenience sake more than anything. And so let's go back over to Hebrew. And the next letter is Bet. Bet. I guess that's, whoops, I'm gonna delete one. Okay. I noticed that Hebrew and Arabic word for head are similar. That's right. Rosh, we would say, in at least with modern pronunciation, Rosh and Ras. Absolutely. Yep. In Aramaic, it would be Resh. Yep. So I would have to Ugaritic, I assume, would be the same, but I would honestly have to go look it up because I just don't deal with Ugaritic much these days. But I have the books over on the bookshelf over there, and I don't. Do I have my Akkadian? I think my Akkadian dictionary is at school right now. I think that's on my my desk. I'm just looking around my office here because I've books scattered, hither and yon here. Yeah. Anyways, do write to me and I'll happily compile a list for you. I'd be happy to do that. But yeah, that's kind of what you find with a lot of these words is that, Rosh, Ras, Ras would be the formal Arabic, Ras would be the spoken Arabic, and Resh in Aramaic, that kind of thing. So yeah. So anyways, the second letter we have here is Bet, Bet. And I've written it in both scripts here. They, basically looks the same. It's just that the Arial is less fancy. And so Beit, properly speaking, or at least originally, makes a B sound like in the English word boy. Okay. Over time, probably in about the 6th century BC, around the time of the Babylonian exile, it became spirantized in certain, we would say, in certain word environments. Okay. That is to say, in certain contexts within the word. And so if you're interested in this sort of thing, oh, sorry, jam myself in here. Um, so this is kind of the standard here for historical Hebrew grammar. And so anybody doing doctoral studies in biblical languages, let's say, will need to have 1 or 2 semesters in historical Hebrew grammar. And Joshua Blau is fantastic. Yeah, we're going to deal with Begad Kafat and the Digashim, the various types of Dagesh. Yeah, and so originally the letter is just, there is no Dagesh. Dagesh is a later addition. Okay, it's a symbol or a diacritical mark, we would say, to indicate different realizations of the letter Beit. And what I mean by different realizations, we mean that sometimes it's pronounced or realized as B, as in boy, and sometimes it's realized as V, as in very. Okay. And we see this, we see this in Spanish to a certain extent. So what we would call the letter V in English, appears at, the beginning of the word veinte, for instance. And depending on what dialect you're speaking, it's going to be kind of a it's a soft b, veinte. The word, I am going, boy. It in English we would say it's spelled with a V, right? But in Latin America, that's going to be pronounced more like a boy. Okay. And so there's this connection between B and V, but etymologically, the letter is a B. Okay. Beit. Now, what we do find, yes, and I appreciate that question, is that in biblical Hebrew and even in if you were looking at modern Hebrew that was fully treated with diacriticals, which is very rare, then yeah, you're going to have a dagesh. That would be b with the dagesh, and that would be v without the dagesh. Okay, so you got that and that, and that, and so the first of the two would be b as in boy, and the second of the two would be v as in, I don't know, very or victory or something like that. Okay. Now, etymologically speaking, okay, in Arabic, we don't have anything that corresponds to dagesh. At least the dagesh, the dagesh lene or the dagesh kal. We just have the letter ba, so it's not pronounced bait; it's pronounced ba. And if you'll permit me here, we'll just go over here, and boom, there it is. Okay. Now, that dot that you see with the letter ba is always there with the letter. It has to be there. Okay. And so that is the letter ba. But that dot has nothing to do with dagesh whatsoever. It's just a coincidence that both of them have a dot. Okay. So in Hebrew, we have aleph beit, aleph beit. In Arabic, we have alif and Hamza, but we'll say Alif Ba, Alif Ba. Okay. There's actually a great Arabic book, an introduction to Arabic book. It's called Alif Ba, published by Georgetown University Press. Absolutely fantastic book. Okay. Now, cool thing is, those of you who know the script of either of these languages know that we can already say our first word or write out our first word in each of these languages. And so let me, we can actually write a few words, come to think of it. Let me just do this. So in Hebrew, the first word that we're going to have is av, which means father. And I'm not going to put vowel marks in tonight, the vowel characters, okay? Tonight, we're just working on the consonants. And it's actually good because you really, if you're going to be proficient with these languages, you need to learn to read without vowel signs. It's just how it works, frankly. So boom, 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 boom. And there it is. So Av. And Av is a word for father. Okay. All right. And then in Arabic, we have a counterpart. Whoops. It'd help if I actually typed it in Arabic. Let me get that up. And that's the word ab or abu. Ab or abu. Different ways to pronounce it. Okay. But both have the aleph or the alif, and both have beit or the ba, in Arabic, right? But you can see how these two languages correspond to one another. Now, in modern Hebrew, we have this. Whoops, sorry. Such a pain in the neck switching back and forth between keyboards. And this would be pronounced Abba. Abba. Modern Hebrew uses this term for father or dad. Okay. Abba. It's actually an Aramaic word, technically. Okay. But Abba. And the Arabic counterpart to this word that you'll hear in the Levant is, whoops, that's Greek, and that is Arabic, is Baba. Baba, which is kind of like Papa. Okay. Baba. There actually is no P sound in Arabic. So we have Ab and Baba in Arabic, and Av and Abba in modern Hebrew. Okay. Abba is actually going to be the more normalized form in modern Hebrew. But Av you recognize even in names like Avshalom, Absalom, Avshalom. Okay. And there are many people in the Levant. A father of a son will be known as Abu so and so. Okay, so in other words, you're not called by your own name; you're called the father of whoever. Abu, so and so. I see we have a comment. Yeah, Egyptian Arabic. The question is, do they use Baba in Egyptian Arabic? And I haven't dealt much with Egyptian Arabic in years. It's in many respects very similar to Palestinian Arabic, but there's enough difference where I wouldn't want to say off the top of my head. I actually have, while I'm reading the other question, let me just go grab something off my shelf. And thank you for your patience. This will give me a chance to show this to you. Let's see here. Yeah. It's always best to admit when you don't know something, just admit it, right? It's a chance to learn something new. So a couple of things. First of all, this is the book Alif Ba that I was talking about. Fantastic book. If you're going to even learn some basic Arabic, this is the book to start with. The audio is great. It's partly a workbook. But I just want to show you kind of how this works because this is so helpful. Let's see, this is more the introduction. Let's get right to I don't know, so here's how it's laid out in the vocab section. You'll notice that they give you, I don't know how well you can see that, but I'm talking right in the mic now, but they give you the the formal standard Arabic in this column. And then they give you Shami, which is Levantine. And then the Egyptian is right there. So, this is mainly where I did the basic introduction to Egyptian. I focused more on Levantine. And so, yeah, that's actually a great place to start. And I'm actually just looking it up right now to see if they even include this in here. They don't seem to include this word in here. And then the other option, which I can check later, is the Arabic of Egypt by Routledge Publishers. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. And I'll just, I'm glancing at the the dictionary here, they include father, which is ab. That's the same thing, but I don't know how they'd have baba listed if it would be dad. Yeah, and it's just not there. Okay, so yeah, I truthfully I can't answer your question right now, but yeah, you think you used Alif Ba in college. Yeah, it's a lot of university programs used it. Right. So here there's a rule about Dagesh in Hebrew, like it is necessary at the beginning of a word and almost never used at the end of a word, right? Yeah. So no, you don't use it at the end of the word. The only time you would see this is like this is very rare in the when you have a tav suffix, a t suffix at the end of like a pronoun, like at is the feminine singular form for you will see it there. In a suffix conjugation verb, you did something in the past in the feminine. Yeah, you'll see it there, but it's really very unusual to see that. Um, it's very common at the beginning of a word, but there are some tricky rules with that, and we'll probably have to have a separate video dedicated to that. But yeah, excellent question. So please make sure stay on me about that. Make sure I follow up with you on that. All right. So for those of you who are here with us, should we do a few more letters for tonight? I know we're not going to get through the whole alphabet tonight, but we'll keep going. All right. So the next thing I want to do here is in terms of the Arabic alphabet, um, what we're going to find is the next letter, and I'm going to erase some of this here. You know what? I'm going to go to another page. Let's just go down because I don't want to delete anything for those of you who want it. Okay, so we've got. I'm going to do it this way. We're going to change it up. Where we go. Um, I'm just going to get rid of that. And then we're going to reorganize. We're going to restructure here for a minute. And I'm going to put the Arabic here. Okay. And then we're going to put the bait here. Whoops. Put the bait here. Oh, come on. There we go. Bait. And then we'll go over and put the Arabic here. The ba. Okay. Get rid of those. All right. Now, in before we go on to the next comparison here, there technically is no Hebrew counterpart for, oh boy, I got to think about where it is. I haven't been typing in Arabic lately, and sometimes I forget where certain consonants are. There it is. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so in Arabic, we've got alif, ba, oh, and then, sorry, ta, and then we're going to have fa. So this makes a B sound, okay? This makes a T sound, and this makes a TH sound, like in thing, okay? And now, properly speaking, these most directly correspond with the Hebrew letter Tav, okay? This would be Tav with the Dagesh. This would be Tav without the Dagesh. Now, it gets really tricky here because we have to recognize that this is the Arabic alphabet order. Tav is actually the last letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So I'm going to erase it in a little bit to reorganize it so you can see the Hebrew arrangement. But yeah, the Tav can have a T and a TH sound. And so the correspondence between these is a little bit tricky and something that I don't want to get into tonight, but they make the same sound. Okay. Now what we have next, if we're going to follow the Hebrew order, okay, the Hebrew order of letters, the next letter is Gimel. Aleph, Beit, Gimel. Aleph, Beit, Gimel. And in Arabic, what we're going to find is that we have the no, that's Spanish and Arabic. We have the letter Jim, like Jim, Jim. Okay. And so in Palestinian or Levantine Arabic, we would say This would be pronounced as a J, okay? And it corresponds to the Hebrew letter Gimel, which is like the G in, uh, I don't know, the name Greg, okay? Greg, okay? Now, what's interesting about these languages is that in Egyptian Arabic, the jim is often pronounced as a g, just like it is in Hebrew. So the word for university in Palestinian Arabic is jama, jama with the j, but in Egypt it would be gamma, gamma, like that. And so there is this relationship between the J sound, the J sound, and the G sound, even between Arabic dialects there. Yeah, so it's those are the basic correspondences. So if you're speaking, or let's see, going over connecting versus non-connecting letters or final form letters in Hebrew. Yeah, we'll get to those. So it's I'm going to be dependent on you guys for some feedback here, because obviously we can't get to everything tonight. Next video, the next time we do a live stream, I can do like maybe a more rapid approach so that those who are interested in just seeing like the whole kit and caboodle all at once, I can race through it quickly if you want me to. But I wanted to make sure I was providing the necessary context for tonight. So really whatever works best for you guys, just give me lots of feedback in the comments section, because that helps me to do a better job with this. But yeah, we'll get to that. I won't get to the Arabic connecting forms tonight. I'm just doing standalone. For those of you who might not understand the nature of the question, connecting letters in Arabic is really tricky. And the all right, let me give you an example here, okay? Just to show you what I'm talking about. So if we were to take the word for chicken, for instance, like you like to eat chicken, maybe, okay? Sorry if you don't. Okay, notice what happens when I add the alif to the jim. That's a standalone jim, but if I add an alif to it, oh, all of a sudden it changed shape. And that would be ja, ja, okay? And so there's the standalone, and there it is with alif. Now, the word is for chicken is jaj, and so but alif doesn't connect to the next letter, and so we end up with the standalone form. And so in the word jaj, the first jim looks very different from the final jim or the second jim. They both have the dot, they both have kind of the same top to it, but they just look different, okay? If I wanted to, if you want to say he brought, the word is jab, so like that, okay? Jab, he brought, okay? But watch what happens to the bait if I, just for whatever reason, put it at the beginning. Here's a bait. If I add a jim after it, notice what happens to the bait there. It loses its tail and it connects to the jim. Okay. So there's the bait by itself. Here's a bait with an alif after it. It loses its tail. Okay. Ba. So like, or ba in baba, baba. Okay. So that initial bait, like if the letters were to be written separately, it would look like that. But that's not how it works in Arabic. Arabic is a cursive script that connects. And so when you write baba, whoops, sorry, hitting the wrong key, the bait loses its tail. Okay. All right. Now, what about if a bait was in the middle of a word? Well, let me write 3 baits next to each other. So these are 3 baits separate from each other. Watch what happens if I connect them, though. That is, technically unpronounceable, but it's b, b, b. Okay. As if it were in one word. The first bait loses its tail and connects. The second one loses its initial flourish and its final flourish. And then the final one appears as if it were independent. So the bottom line is that there are really 4 forms for the letter ba. There's the independent form right there. And then we have word initial, word medial, and word final. And many consonants in the Arabic language have 4 forms to them. Okay? The standalone, word initial, word medial, word final. And so Hebrew by comparison is a whole lot easier. Okay? But the good news is it's not unachievable to learn this. Okay? Not unachievable. All right. Any other questions before we press on here? Okay. All right. So let me I'll keep an eye on the chat. So let's just do one more for tonight. So we've got the Hebrew aleph, bet, gimel. Okay, we said aleph is technically a silent letter in modern pronunciation. Bet can be B or V, depending on the context, right? And then we saw in the word av, right, that it's silent. Okay, for instance, in right, that's pronounced av, but this is pronounced abba. And so both are unvocalized. Here it's pronounced as a V, here it's pronounced as a B. And it's not important that you know why right now. You just need to understand that when you see this letter and there are no vowels present, it can be B or V, and you just have to learn the vocab. Okay. It's kind of like in English, for instance, if this seems strange to you, you know, how do you pronounce this word? Okay. And how do you pronounce this word? Right. Well, okay. In both cases, in the word kick, both of the K's are pronounced. In the word knife, it's not. How would you ever know that as a English as a second language student? You don't. You just learn the vocab. It's something you memorize, and eventually, over time you'll learn rules, and that's how I think it's best to approach Hebrew. Okay, so we've got aleph, then we've got bet, then we've got gimel, which is going to make that gus sound. It corresponds to the Arabic jim. Okay, and now our final letter for tonight is going to be dalet. Okay, and this will correspond to the Arabic form dal. So dalet in Hebrew, dal in Arabic. Now, the Hebrew form dalet could make the D or the DH sound, depending on what period of Hebrew you're talking about. And so it's no coincidence then that dalet can correspond to, right there, 2 different Arabic letters. The first one is dal, like a D, like in David. And this one is val. We typically spell it DH, like in, the English word that. Okay, we spell it TH there, but this would be like a DH, but it makes that V sound. Okay, makes the sound. Now, in Tiberian Hebrew, the name David would have been pronounced David, not David. David. Yeah. So this dalet could have had both pronunciations there. But our letters for tonight, aleph, bet, gimel, dalet. And properly, I know this question's going to come up. Right? In Tiberian Hebrew, the Hebrew of the Bible that we've inherited, the dalet with the dot would make the d sound. The dalet without the dot would make the v sound, like that. Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. And although verses through verses, cough versus do versus rough. Oh, I see what. Yes. Yeah. The very, very good point. Yeah. Through, cough, do, and rough. Excellent. Excellent point there. Good. That's why I love doing this. It's better than me just talking and recording a video. I really love the feedback from everybody. So, all right, cool. Well, anyways, this has all been a little bit of an experiment because, I don't know who is really watching this stuff. Like some people have no Hebrew, some people have a lot of Hebrew. Some people have some Arabic, some people have no Arabic. And I want to make these live streams as useful as possible. I want you guys to feel like you can always ask questions. There are no stupid questions, right? So just, anytime you want, and give me some feedback, when this posts as a video. I think YouTube, like after a day or something, it becomes a video that you can rewatch. I think that's how they do things. And just leave comments there. And before I do the next live stream on the alphabet, we will do that. Yeah. In your teaser for this, you said that knowing Hebrew and Arabic were important for biblical studies. Yes. Could you expound on that? Absolutely. Okay. So yeah, let's take a few minutes to talk about that. After I take a swig of coffee, the Arabic part in particular. All right, we'll do. Okay, so why is Arabic important for understanding? Let's rephrase it. Why is knowing Arabic important for biblical studies? Okay, particularly the study of the Hebrew scriptures or the First Testament. Okay, so number one, Arabic is incredibly useful. Sorry, let me There we go. There we go. That's better. So Arabic, first of all, is useful because it has a rich lexicon. The number of words that are known to us from history from Arabic is far greater than Hebrew, and many words from in the Hebrew Bible, they're ancient words, kind of like Shakespearean Hebrew, if you will, something like that. And there are many times what we call hapax legomena, which is a Greek term for words that only occur once. So there are a number of words that might only occur once in the Hebrew scriptures, or twice or three times. And you'd say, well, how would we figure that out? Well, you look at the context, right? The only problem is sometimes the context is not clear. So what do you do in such a case? Well, you appeal to other Semitic languages. And that's why typically people who have doctoral training specifically in Hebrew Bible have to study around 10 languages. You have to learn a little bit of French and German. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to learn a little bit of French and German to read research that are produced out of other countries. You kind of have to know some Greek. Latin is not terribly relevant anymore, but you got to know some Greek. But yeah, like one of the commenters was saying before. Yeah. Okay. I don't even know what that word means off the top of my head, which kind of makes the point, right? That I'd have to go look it up in a dictionary, right? But so how do we learn what these words mean? Well, the first thing is you look at the context in which they appear. But in cases where the context is not clear, well, what do? Well, you go to Semitic languages. All right. So let's take. I'm going to take a common word here. So let me share my screen here and just. Oh wait, I could have done that for you before, which would have allowed you to see this. Yeah, entire screen. Okay. Well, maybe that wouldn't have been good. All right. So, in any event, all right. Hopefully you can see the biblical software. I'm going to be producing an exegetical video on Jonah 1:6. Okay. So I'll probably be doing that tomorrow. It'll get posted to Patreon and eventually to YouTube. But let's take something common like Elohim, the word for God. Okay. And so we're going to look it up in the dictionary. So let's pretend we had never heard the word Elohim before. We don't know what it means in Hebrew. So we go to the dictionary, and this is the Hebrew and Aramaic dictionary of the Old Testament, and it lists it under Eloah. So this is the plural form of Eloah, which is where the word Allah comes from, by the way. And so if we want to know about Elohim, it directs us to Eloah. So let's go here. And here we are, Eloah and Elohim. Okay, comes from the base form El. And let's see what information they give us. They say, okay, well, it occurs about 60 times. Great. Okay. Gives us some examples, right? And then it cites Middle Hebrew, which is going to be, post-biblical Hebrew. It tells us that in Aramaic, we have the form, pardon me, we have the form ilah, right? And then we get biblical Aramaic, right? And notice all the variation that we have here, okay? More in Aramaic. And then we get this plural form from Ugaritic, which Ugaritic is not vocalized. You have to supply. And so that looks like Elohim. It's just an I instead of an E, right? And then you get a variety. And look, oh, lo and behold, the Arabic word ilah, ilah. And with the article, it becomes Allah, Allah. Okay. So, anyways, this is just one of the many ways in which Arabic can be useful. It helps us to Hebrew words. So when we're dealing with a word that maybe only occurs once in the Hebrew Bible, and we look at the context, we say, man, the context really doesn't tell us much of anything. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to look and see if there's a cognate form, a related form in other Semitic languages. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, in order to do that carefully, we have to make sure we understand how the Hebrew alphabet corresponds to the Arabic alphabet. Okay, there are letters that you might consider them false friends. And so this is something that requires a little bit of training, a little bit of sophistication. But once you understand how it works, then it becomes fairly straightforward. And so that's the first way. So how else can Arabic help us with, with understanding biblical Hebrew? The second thing is syntax. Okay. So let me give you an example here. If you wanted to say something like, let me just come up with a sentence here. If you wanted to say something like, I went to the store while I was talking on the phone. Okay, I'm just kind of making this up. I went to the store while I was talking on the phone. Okay, in Arabic, the way in spoken Arabic anyway, the way you would say that is I went to the store and I am talking on the phone. You wouldn't use a unique word for while. You would use the word and in a certain type of construction. Now, when you look at that, literally, you say that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because that's not how English works. But the thing is, Hebrew and Arabic are related. The novice biblical Hebrew student might see an and this happens fairly regularly, where we see an and in Hebrew and we assume, or let me rephrase that. We see a vav, a v, conjunctive prefix, and we assume, oh, it means and or but. Well, yeah, sometimes. But if we know Arabic, we'll say, well, oh, wait, that can also mean while. And oh, it can mean so that. In other words, the wow in Arabic, which corresponds to vav in Hebrew, has a wide range of meaning. And when we understand that and we come to the biblical text, we might more easily catch on to some of the syntactic nuances of that. Let's see, then there's the cultural piece, right? When you learn Arabic, you learn about the culture of the language. Sorry, we got a comment here. Pardon me. How different is the Arabic in the Quran from modern Arabic? Yeah. So, well, when we got to be careful, or carefully define what we mean by modern Arabic. So, modern Arabic, there is formal Arabic. We call that Fusha, okay, which is typically the way we refer to it in American academia is Modern Standard Arabic. If you ever see the abbreviations MSA, that means Modern Standard Arabic. And Modern Standard Arabic, the simplest way to put it is that it's like an updated version of Quranic Arabic. Okay, it's very formal in terms of how you write it. So, for instance, the to say he wrote, like he wrote a book or something like that. In formal Arabic, the word would properly be kataba, kataba. Okay. Whereas in spoken Arabic, it would shorten to katab, katab. Okay. So words in modern Arabic tend to shorten. Okay. Um, the pronunciation changes. We also get, so like the change of sounds. Remember, I said in formal Arabic before, kind of towards the beginning of the video, ras means head, ras. But in spoken Arabic, ras, ras. Um, you know, so yeah, it really is very different. And one of the cool things for biblical studies here, just yet another thing, is that the fact that there are different registers of Arabic should cause us to question whether in biblical Hebrew are there different registers that the writers of the Bible write in. And so one example of where this comes up is Exodus chapter 15, which is the Song of the Sea. And pardon me, sorry, a little tickle in my throat. So in Exodus 15, the Song of the Sea, it's poetry, and scholars for a long time said this is clearly ancient Hebrew poetry. It looks very archaic. The only problem is, and it may very well be archaic poetry, but it might also be a different register of Hebrew as well. There can be maybe a sophisticated form of Hebrew, and that spoken Hebrew might have been a little bit different. And it's interesting if you go and you study direct quotations in narrative of biblical Hebrew, that sometimes you can catch things where grammatically it's a little bit different. The and just the fact that Arabs today have formal Arabic, they listen to the news in formal Arabic, they might be taught in university in formal Arabic, but on the street nobody speaks formal Arabic. In fact, if the only Arabic you learn is formal Arabic, and you go over to Palestine and you go into a grocery store to talk to some, I don't know, let's say some 20-year-old young man or young woman who's the clerk there, and you start speaking formal Arabic. I actually did this once back in 2018. They had no idea what I was talking about. Absolutely no idea what I was talking about. Part of it might have been the accent, but the other part was it's not how they speak. And so just the word to speak, like I speak Arabic, in if you wanted to say that in Levantine Arabic, it's bahki Arabi. Bahki, I speak, bahki Arabi. And you would use a totally different verb if you're speaking formal Arabic. And more than that, there's a different rhythm to the language. The rhythm of the language is totally different. Like even if you can't speak Arabic fluently, but you've been trained somewhat in formal Arabic and spoken Arabic, and someone just plays a text that's too fast for you to understand, you will still know by the rhythm of the language that it's different. Yes, and thank you for that comment. You are absolutely right. Egyptians, unless they're specifically trained in Moroccan Arabic, they have no idea what it means. Absolutely none. Okay, it's people all over the Arab world will have an easier time understanding Egyptian simply because Egypt is the kind of like the media capital of the Arab speaking world. And so most of the movies come out of Egypt, actually. So it produces a lot of music and film and all that. So yeah, it's much easier to find a film in Egyptian Arabic than it is in, say, Palestinian Arabic or something like that. Yeah. So, anyways, hopefully this helps a little bit. I really covet your feedback. Would love to hear from you guys. Send me messages and leave your comments on YouTube. And yeah, appreciate you spreading the word about the channel. And if you're interested in my more detailed videos that deal more with Hebrew and Aramaic, please check out my Patreon channel. The support that subscribers provide there really helps me to continue doing what I'm doing, because right now YouTube doesn't exactly pay the bills, if you know what I mean. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your support, your comments, and look forward to doing this again before long. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.